That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity.
Won't stand a chance. Never seen a smile as beautiful as yours. Won't stand a chance. Won't stand a chance.
That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity. That's absolutely captivating. Yeah, those candles bring calm and serenity.
Test. Yeah. So we are waiting for 15 to 20 participants who are currently downstairs. They came by bus. Representatives from Ukraine and Moldova with transport community. So we'll wait for maybe 2-3 minutes of your patience. They will come up, and then we will start. Thank you. Okay, we will be starting up the final conference. So I do invite all of you to come in, take a seat. Special welcome to all of you. There was a taxi strike today in Vienna, which caused some delays for some of us, but happy to see that everybody made it. So we'll be starting up by welcoming you and thanking all of you for joining us here today in Vienna at the Green Inland Ports final conference. At this final conference, in the next 2 days, we will be bringing you on a journey, and that journey is called Green Inland Ports, which we have been doing over the last 3 years. But we also hope that this final conference is not the end of that journey, but rather also the beginning of, let's say, further development and further adoption. And what that means, I hope that will become clear over the course of the conference. Today we came together from all parts of Europe, so thank you again for joining us, and thank you again for visiting. A special word of welcome to the representatives from Ukraine and Moldova. Thank you for being here together with Transport Community, and Transport Community, thank you for bringing us here together. I'd also like to raise a special word of welcome to ThinkPort for hosting us here, and Port of Vienna for the participation in this project. 2 years ago, we had the new Ports Days at this exact same location, which was a very nice and eventful gathering. And we are looking forward for the next 2 days to be discussing with you the Green Inland Ports project and all the project results at this location. So thanks again and welcome. Without further ado, then I would like to introduce the first speaker, Mrs. Doris Poelker-Roerover, who will speak on behalf of the Port of Vienna and provide you with a welcome on behalf of our host. So, Doris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jasper. Hello, everybody. Warm welcome to Vienna, to the Port of Vienna, and to ThinkPort of Vienna. My colleagues and I are very pleased and proud to host the Green Inland Ports final conference. My name is Doris Poelker-Roerover, and I'm Managing Director of Port of Vienna, and together with my colleague Fritz Lehr, who is here today as well, we manage our wonderful port. So allow me to provide you with some brief information about our company. Port of Vienna is the largest three-modal inland port in Austria. We have an area of 3 million square meters at our disposal, and 200 companies are located on our premises, providing up to 5,000 jobs. We are an important multimodal logistics hub, which means that we are connected to rail, road, and inland waterways. And we have the largest container terminal in Austria. Our subsidiary Wincont handles 500,000 TEU per year. The Port of Vienna plays an important role in supplying the city of Vienna, and up to 4 million tons of goods are handled per year at our port. We have a turnover of 58.8 million euros and an operating profit of 9.1 million euros. Of course, ThinkPort Vienna, where we are here today, is our logistics and innovation lab, and it is powered by Port of Vienna and the University of Life Sciences. Now let's talk about today's and tomorrow's event, the Green Inland Ports Final Conference. Let me say once again that it is an honor for the Port of Vienna to participate as one of the pilot ports in this project. Our sincere thanks go to DG Move for supporting initiatives like this. We appreciate the strong cooperation between Green Inland Ports, the multi-reload project, the European Federation of Inland Ports, Think Port Vienna, and finally the Port of Vienna. And we hope to continue this inspiring cooperation in the future. We have a number of organizations present today. Thank you for participating. Jasper mentioned a few of them already, but I would like to thank the European Commission, DG Move, the transport community, including representatives from Ukraine and Moldova, the European Federation of Inland Ports, represented by its president, Uwe Köhn, who is here today as well. The Danube Commission, research and academic institutions, the Federal Ministry of Innovation, Mobility and Infrastructure, multi-reload project partners. We have representatives from European ports and logistics networks, and finally, representatives of the city of Vienna. Let me talk briefly about the results and the project value for our port. The Green Inland Port Initiative brought strong added value to both the Port of Vienna and our subsidiary, our container terminal, Wincont. The project highlight, of course, is the environmental impact tool. My team has assured me that the tool is easy to use. It shows emissions per terminal, and most important, it enables monitoring and targeted improvement measures. And of course, we hope to continue this joint development beyond this point, this project. Finally, thanks again to all project partners and organizations for your dedication and for your work. Port of Vienna and the Think Port Vienna team are delighted to host today's and tomorrow's event. Martin Posset, Peter Royko, and above all, Henrike Bauer, thank you very much for helping to prepare and to organize this conference. I wish everyone inspiring and productive discussions over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for these inspiring welcome words. I would then like to turn the page towards our welcome speakers. And actually, what you see here on the slide are the welcome speakers for tomorrow, for the second day. But I would already like to introduce them to you, to be making sure that you will be here and you'll be visiting us tomorrow as well. So each day, so tomorrow, today and tomorrow, we have a keynote speaker from the sector. Tomorrow it's from the Inland Ports sector, European Federation of Inland Ports, a keynote speaker from an institutional perspective, and a keynote speaker from Austria. If we look towards on the next slide, today's keynote speakers, we have a presentation, or we have a keynote speech from the European Commission, which will be taken up by Christian Leasic, who will be replacing Jur van Honecker, who unfortunately could not be here because of strikes in Belgium. We will be joined by by Markus Simoner, who will speak on behalf of Vera Hofbauer, and by Resi Hacksteiner for the European Barge Union, who joins us from online. So without further ado, then I would like to introduce you the first keynote speaker. Christian, please step forward and provide your keynote speech on behalf of the European Commission. Stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Jasper, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, from my side. As introduced, I'm stepping in today for our coordinator, team leader, Hugues van Honecker. But I'm really happy to be here today, also for many other events that are taking place. As mentioned, we have our friends from Ukraine and Moldova. We already had the first part of the day kicked in, so I think it's a great effort of the organizers to come together, organize all this in terms of logistics. So really, I would like to help and thank the organizers. Well, I would like to start by saying that, of course, the European Commission is committed to ensuring sustainable prosperity and competitiveness across our union, and the role of inland ports should not be disregarded in this journey. We all know that inland waterway transport is a special mode of transport. It's very unique if you compare it to other modes of transport. But at the same time, of course, ports are very complex environments and entities that include many areas such as planning, logistics, investments, standards, obligations, but also bring significant benefits to the regions, to the countries, and most importantly, to the communities and its citizens. With this comprehensive but also a concrete study, we have opened another dimension of inland ports, and that is greening that goes hand in hand with digitalization. And that is why today, final conference of the Green Ports Inland Study is a milestone that should not be underestimated. Starting from our strategic documents such as Green Deal and Smart Sustainable Mobility Strategy, inland waterways and inland ports were identified as one of the cleanest alternatives to classical transport modes. And by completing this study, we are actually implementing our NAIADES program. I think this is very important to mention. So from the side of the European Commission, it's really a true win-win situation for the Commission, for the sector, for the EU member states, but equally important for our riparian Danube states and EU candidate countries, Ukraine and Moldova. You are all aware that our flagship program, NAIADES 3 Action Plan, has two core objectives: shifting more freights to inland waterways and setting the sector on a path to zero emission. Under the chapeau of zero emissions, inland ports are, of course, an indispensable element, and that is why this study is crucially important for the future developments of inland ports in Europe. We have given them a place on the map, but also defined the course of action and possibilities which we hope many of the European inland ports will embrace. That is why we have specifically dedicated a separate action in NAIADES for greening of ports, which this dedicated study on the impacts that the port activities of river and seaports can have on the environment brought to life. The results and the pragmatic solutions that the study came up are multiple and multidimensional. The most valuable output of this study are definitely the custom-made specific tools, such as environmental management systems, as well as the port-specific action plans, creating a nucleus for wide-scale rollout of environmentally sustainable port management and operations. Furthermore, the Port Environmental Impact Calculator, a tool for calculation of environmental impacts in inland ports, is an innovative and applicable tool with great potential. As regards the area of urban mobility and short-range inland waterway transport, we now have, as a result of this study, a quantified estimation of the rollout potential for urban and short-range freight for inland waterway transport and potential impact for modal shift. And I know that in the course of this conference we will have panels, and also my colleague from the Commission will participate and give further insight into this. Of course, this is once again a novelty for the ports, which is definitely worthwhile exploring and utilizing to the desired extension. We would like to see in the future, from the side of the Commission, a sort of a healthy green competition between the ports, or better to say co-petition, a word that is rarely used, but in a way it is evident that inland ports are both competitors, but they also cooperate. So we like to see them in this world of co-petition with a healthy green standards applied and working together. With the deliverables of this study, ports are equipped with tools and action that will set them on a path to become key players in the green transition. As set out in the European Green Deal and the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy, we need ports in developing their sustainability and in contributing to reduce their climate and environmental impacts. There's a double focus here. First of all, ports have an important role to play for the provision of clean energy to vessels, in particular to ensure the supply of shoreside as required by the alternative fuel infrastructure regulation. Secondly, the ports must also reduce emissions from their own operations, such as cargo handling, and from their hinterland connections by shifting these to rail. We should also not forget the deliverables of this study related to further digitalization, which is also needed as it plays a significant role in improving the efficiency and the reliability of navigation and traffic management. Better integrating inland waterway transport in multimodal chains and reducing the administrative burden are, of course, indispensable parts. In this respect, the Digital Maturity Assessment tool developed under this study to evaluate the digital maturity level is laying the foundation for digitalization activities and plans of each and every inland port in the European Union. Here, I would also like to say that we are very happy that we have now a new study on the implementation of the digitalization vision, and we believe that the deliverables of this study will very nicely fit in and blend in into the future activities of the digitalization vision. And at the end, I would just like to also mention, of course, what is always interesting from the point of the plans of European Commission and the financing possibilities. We are now starting the new financial framework in terms of the discussions. It is still too early to see how exactly this will roll out. What I would like to mention is that we will have a special new program which is called Sustainable Transport Investment Plan, and this specific plan will also take into account inland waterways transport. This plan recognizes the renewable fuels are needed across the entire waterborne sector, including inland waterways. Furthermore, the Commission has announced, and we are very proud that in the coming years we will also have a dedicated study to assess decarbonization options for inland navigation and support the uptake of alternative fuels. By closing, I would like to say that the green ports open many doors of what is possible in terms of sustainability and greening of ports of inland waterways, and they will continue to be the focal points of internal and external greening. It is important also to see this and do it in a concerted approach, a European approach, in line with our common priorities, which will be further defined in this and streamlined in the strategic documents that are going to be announced very soon, such as the EU Port Strategy and the future NAIADES program. But let me be clear. The Commission, of course, is here to give guidance, but cannot solve everything. All actors must contribute to this path, and the EU can help with a certain framework, conditions, but the ports and the sector itself and the individual companies will have to give its mark. To conclude, I would like to say that inland ports are and will be crucial for inland waterway transport and the European economy. By adapting the greening initiative offered by this study and integrating them in the strategic plans of their ports will bring a green added value that should be there to stay. And the shades of green, or better to say the shades of greening that the ports will choose will be the indicators of their ambition. We really hope that the ports will strive for this in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian, for your introduction and for your words on behalf of the European Commission. I think you are absolutely right when you said, okay, ports are in competition, but do need to cooperate with as well. And I hope, and I will hope that we will see over the next 2 days that the ports are actually doing that, And with these tools, we actually provide a platform and we provide a possibility for ports to actually cooperate and implement actions together in a harmonized way. We then would like to turn to the next keynote speech. This keynote speech will be provided by Markus Simoner, who will speak on behalf of Vera Hofbauer and provide a keynote speech for the Federal Ministry in Austria of Innovation, Mobility and Infrastructure. So please, Markus, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jasper. Well, as you can see, I'm not Vera, I'm Markus. I have to apologize. My boss, Vera Hofbauer, was not able to come today, but I shall forward you her greetings. And she is also very proud that the Port of Vienna is hosting this final conference. As I'm here replacing Vera on a short time period, I was not able to prepare a speech, so I have to tell you a story. When I started my professional career more than 20 years ago in Via Donau, the first 10 years I was in European projects. We were engaged very heavily in European projects for inland waterway transport, and I will never forget my first project, which was 2004, Prospects of Inland Navigation Europe. We were very motivated, a European team of all different countries. We finalized the project in 2005 and presented it, and we celebrated. So the first message is congratulations to you for finalizing this project. Please celebrate today, tomorrow, because these things will last. So the first message is for me, for you, celebrate this moment, and you can be proud for your results. Second message is same as in sports, after the game is before the game. So it never ends. You have some results, some intermediate results. I have understood you have some tools, also some calculators. This is, let's say, very important, but you should build on it, and it always continues. So the second message from my side would be, don't stop cooperation. We are living in a very complex world, and here today we have colleagues from many different European countries, also countries which face today very severe problems. And being here alone and getting to know all the different people, this is something for itself. So cooperation, and here I would also like to thank the European Commission, because my professional experience is with the help of European projects and also the co-funding, this is possible. So beyond all the professional talks, and if you have this or that calculator, I got to know a lot of different people in these projects. I know them until today, and this was the basis of the cooperation. So the personal links which you established in the last 3 years, I think were equally important. They will not end, and you will continue to cooperate. So this is the second message, cooperation never ends. In the European Union, in our framework, with the European Commission as a facilitator, this is also very important, more than ever, I would say, in terms like this. The third message is greening, because this project was about greening. Green inland ports, modes of transport, to green them, be it inland waterway transport or on the road. Yes, it is a very important topic. On the other hand, we also have the environment, and besides the environmental performance, economic performance. We compete in a world where we have also to present economic figures. And the third thing is security. Military mobility is also a very modern, let's say, word which is not nice, but we need also to deal with it. And you think about it all together, we have to find a very good compromise. And no one will find it alone. It will not be the Commission alone, it will not be in Austria, not be in any, so we have to discuss it together. This is my third message. Also for the cooperation in very critical times, we have to focus what is important, and to distillate the most important results, to keep them, to develop them further, and to find together good solutions. How we want to live in the next years, what is important for us, also what is important for the development of ports, and not one, let's say, means is alone. It is not about environment alone, it's not about economic importance alone, not about security, but it is the big picture. This is also something which I see clearly. As Austrian Ministry of Transport, we have quite a big tradition in, let's say, supporting such European activities, because we have a very high knowledge as a small country that we need to cooperate. In the Danube region, we have 10 different countries. 7 of them are within the European Union. 3 are not in the European Union. Serbia, Moldova, and Ukraine. Partly not yet in the European. So we need also here to cooperate, to listen to each other, and to find common solutions. As a ministry, we know this, we support all the activities, and we are very proud also to be here, which is a very good place for having a final conference. I think it was a great idea of the Port of Vienna to have this Think Board. Peter, I look to you now, because we spoke about it. And it's a very fitting place for such a final conference. So being at the end of my story, because it's not a speech, it's a story, I wish you a very good and fruitful discussions here. Please stay in contact, connect to each other, and continue our journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus, for your story. And I actually think it was a very nice and inspiring story. So you were more than a worthy replacement. Thank you very much. We would then like to turn towards the final keynote speech, which will be provided on behalf of the barge sector, the European barge sector. So I'm happy to introduce Resi Hochsteiner, who is Secretary General of the European Barge Union, and we will also speak on behalf of the European Inland Waterway Transport Platform. She will be making her keynote address online, as similar problems were arising with the strikes in Brussels. But we are very happy to have Resi here with us today. And thank you very much for still being available to provide your speech. So Resi, I hope you can hear us. I hope that we will be able to hear you. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Jasper. Can you hear me?
I confirm we can hear you.
Thank you so much. My apologies for not being with you in the wonderful city of Vienna. I would have loved to come to Vienna and to be with you to celebrate this result. First of all, let me also thank you, congratulate you on the results of this project. I agree with the previous speakers that it delivered tangible results on a very important issue for both the ports, but in particular also the users of the ports. And therefore, I'm very pleased to be invited to share today with you and your colleagues also the views from the inland waterway transport sector on the issue of greening, on the issue of the study that is focusing on, or that was focusing on greening and also on digitalization. And just let me, for the sake of introduction, say a few words on the European Barge Union for those that are not familiar with it yet. It is the European association which regroups the national associations of barge owners and operators, both from the freight and passenger side all over Europe. And that means that we connect the Black Sea with the North Sea, with all national associations from countries along the Danube, if existing, and the Rhine and others within our organization. And our main mission is to contribute to the development of a sustainable and efficient pan-European transport system And we are doing so via various channels and means. So we are involved in the development of policy and framework conditions at the EU level and international level, also strongly cooperating with other institutions. And finally, of course, we aim to increase not only the modal share, but also to promote our sector as the safest, sustainable, and environmentally friendly mode of transport. It has been mentioned yet by previous speakers. And to achieve our goals, we are closely cooperating with the European institutions, but also with the river commissions, the river protection commissions, UNEC, but also all relevant stakeholders. And one of them certainly are the inland ports. That's why I'm very pleased to be here with you today. And let me share a few of the key figures, which might be very familiar to you, but it also shows the close link, obviously, between inland ports and inland waterways, because we are two sides of one coin, one could say. This picture shows, in particular, the dense cooperation between these two sectors on the very dense system of waterways all over Europe. We are supported and served by 250 inland ports. I think that's very crucial and very important fact. In that sense, so we are strongly interlinked and cooperating in many areas. And let me turn then into the cooperation we are currently in. It has been mentioned before by Christian in his speak on behalf of the European Commission that our sector is certainly also very much challenged towards greening and a better integration into multimodal transport chain via digitalization. And in this respect, we have been closely cooperating with our colleagues from the ports, but also with other stakeholders like the waterway managers and infrastructure managers to already provide our input to the upcoming strategies as a result of the Clean Industrial Deal and the Green Deal. It has been emphasized already. It is the Sustainable Transport Investment Plan that has been released last week, but also the input to the upcoming port strategy and waterborne industrial strategy. So having prepared for that, we emphasized the important role both inland waterway transport and the ports are playing in achieving Europe's climate neutrality, but also resilience and strategic autonomy. I think these are very important aspects currently on the geopolitical agenda. And therefore, we have prepared a joint vision in which we submitted our concrete proposals from the sector side, what would be needed to make waterways and ports more resilient, more sustainable, but also more competitive. And that's one of the major aspects of the Clean Industrial Deal, the current policy framework. Well, in that respect, we defined 4 thematic priority actions that would be very important from the ports and inland waterway transport sectors point of view to be covered by the new policy framework. And that's, first of all, that boosting research and innovation for the green transition of both the ports and the waterway transport would be very important. So it's important to have a synchronized rollout of renewable energy network along the waterways and in ports, because in our greening endeavor, we are very strongly depending on the availability of renewable energy all over the European network. And therefore, it's very important to have the results of your study that certainly feeds into these attempts and should guarantee that our sector in the future will be supplied with sufficient alternative energies like onshore power, but also the hubs for new alternative fuels in the future. We also need to improve the competitiveness of our sectors through boosting the digital transition of our sector and ports. And a very important other aspect will be the resilient and dual use of inland waterways and the port infrastructure. Marcus already mentioned mobility package and military mobility that has been also released earlier this week or last week, I think. It's very important that in the future we will count and be able to count on predictable and substantial investment in infrastructure, which will be supported by SF3. And also in that respect, we saw, and we are currently under the negotiations between member states and the Commission to have sufficient funding available for this port and waterway infrastructure, in particular also in view of climate resilience, which is one of the major challenges of our sector to keep waterways adapted to fully be able to sail on it and to act as a reliable partner to our clients. And finally, but certainly also not less important, it's also important to have a modernized framework for improved jobs and skills in our sector. So these are the major aspects we addressed in our input to the upcoming strategies. And to summarize, it is, as you're very well aware of, our sectors are able to pay an important contribution to deliver the future policy and mobility goals, and this via the greening of the fleet, the climate adaptation and the alternative energy sources, and certainly also the modal shift. Let me then also say a few words on the already mentioned project of digitalization that is also crucial in this entire endeavor to realize the future greening, adaptation to sustainability via the digitalization. The European Commission has granted a project to our organization, the Inland Waterway Transport platform, together with ECOWIS and a number of other project partners all over Europe, which is supposed to contribute to the concept of smart shipping and looking into various aspects of shipping in relation to ports, in relation also to connecting to other modes of transport, but also merely on the vessel side as such, via automation, for instance. Infrastructure, a very important aspect with regard to the 24/7 availability, remote control, interaction and coexistence, and finally also a smart data exercise in view of data sharing and exchange. And what is intended to be realized or to contribute to would be the full integration of inland waterway transport data space into the EU mobility space, and by doing so also to support the full implementation of the risk network management concept. And we are very pleased that we are on the front row of this very important project that also is supposed to contribute to the overarching aspect and goal of sustainability in the broadest sense of the word in our sector. Let me then come to the conclusion. As we could witness already from other speakers, but also from our joint endeavor in our close cooperation with our colleagues from EFIP, our sectors are closely interlinked. They are interconnected in various areas, and they are fundamental to realize a sustainable European economy and to achieve climate environmental objectives that are laid down in the various policies. And we shouldn't forget that both ports and our industries are serving a broad range of functions and a huge variety of clients, be it heavy industry all over Europe, or tourism, which is also a very important aspect, urban logistics of increasing importance in the coming years to contribute to the climate neutrality in the future. And in that sense, I once again would like to stress that ports for our sector are a crucial player, in particular in supporting us to achieving the energy neutrality and zero emission via the supply of alternative fuels in the future. So we look forward to continue the close cooperation between between your industries, the ports, and ours. And having said so, I would once again like to congratulate the ports on this important achievement and thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Rezi, for your keynote address. I'd like to thank all keynote speakers, Christian, Marcus, for speaking today. To all of you, I'd already like to turn your attention to tomorrow, when we will be having keynote speeches from Manfred Seitz, Danube Commission, Uwe Kuhn from European Federation of Inland Ports, and Eva Chernoholsky, who will speak on behalf of the Vienna Business Agency. Then I'd like to turn the page to this project, Green Inland Ports. And as a brief overview of what this project is about, I will give you an introduction. First of all, as part of this introduction, I'd like to introduce a question. Why do we need, or why has there ever been a European project on the greening of inland ports? A key factor here, and I don't need to introduce that again, as that was already highlighted by our keynote speakers, a key factor is that inland ports have an important function when it comes to achieving policy objectives. For instance, in relation to decarbonization. Very important in the context of the European Green Deal and the smart and sustainable mobility strategy, but also in view of more recent policy priorities and more recent ambitions when it comes to industrial competitiveness and strategic autonomy, as well as security and resilience. So this project is called Green Inland Ports, but I would say that its applicability and its relevance goes beyond that and is much more broader than that. We also noted that, and it's been mentioned a number of times over the course of this project, that historically insufficient attention might be placed in European policy to this important function that TEN-T inland ports have. And it was actually one of the reasons in 2018-2019 that the European Parliament initiated a pilot project study. And this task was assigned to the European Commission, as Christian already mentioned, and it was adopted as one of the policy options or policy actions of the NAIADES III policy framework and the NAIADES III strategy. The European Commission decided to launch a tender, which indeed in 2022 was awarded to a consortium of Ecoris, CE Delft, Pantea, ProDanube, the Erasmus University, Blanco, and EICB. The objective of this project, this 3-year project, was to, in the end, support inland ports on the TEN-T network with practical tools, guidelines, and strategies that they can actually use. And therefore, one of the key requirements for this project was also not only to develop tools and to be putting something on paper, but in the end, test these tools together with inland ports. And we're happy that today and tomorrow, a lot of inland ports are on the schedule. We have been testing the tools together with us. So what are we going to discuss today and tomorrow? We have several sessions on the agenda. The first session today will be moderated by Roy van den Berg from CE Delft, and he will talk to you about the Port Environmental Impact Calculator, and there will be a panel discussion together with ports who have tested the Port Environmental Impact Calculator. The second session will be chaired by Ioanna Courugnotti from Pantea, who will talk to you about the entire overview of environmental and sustainable management systems produced in this project and tested with inland ports. Then, if we turn the page towards tomorrow, the first session tomorrow will be on urban mobility and short-range inland waterway transport, which will be chaired by Hendrik Armbrecht, and he will also be introducing you to what we did to calculate the rollout potential on urban and short-range IWT. And again, panel discussions will be taking place, as well as the last, but I would definitely say, last but not least, the last session of tomorrow on the digitalization master plan that was produced in this project. And this session will be chaired by Robert Raphael from ProDanube. Then, as I said before, what will happen after this final conference? Because it's the end of our project, but hopefully it should really be the start, as already mentioned a number of times, it should really be the start of something new. So tools, guidelines, strategies, they have been developed by this project. They will be, or they are already, publicly available on the Green Inland Ports website. So there's a website you can go to, you can navigate it, and you can use and test the several tools that are produced by the project. However, that should not be the end of the story, because if you want to stay relevant, further development and adoption is critical. Actually, yesterday I was in another meeting for another project which was also introduced by Christian and Racey on digitalization vision, and there it was mentioned, okay, if we develop a roadmap, it is okay, but then in the end, if that roadmap is not adopted and actually implemented, then you have something which is nice on paper, but in the end, it's worth nothing. And the same applies to these tools. If these tools will become or should stay relevant, they need to be used, they need to be further developed. They need to be further developed. So that is really the key message here. Therefore, one of our key recommendations in our final report will be to the European Commission, to the European inland port sector, and relevant international organizations, such as the River Commissions, to work on a joint action plan. And such an action plan should be focused on further development, should be focused on further adoption, as I already introduced. But such an action plan does not to be drafted fully from scratch. There are already a lot of policy initiatives under which such an action plan, an umbrella, can be placed. For instance, the European Port Strategy, which is currently drafted and developed by the European Commission. But what is also drafted and developed by the European Commission is the next policy framework for inland waterway transport. And as Racey already rightfully pointed out, without ports, there's no inland waterway transport sector, but also the other way around. So it's critical to connect these two together for the next strategy on inland waterway transport, for the next strategy on the inland waterway transport. And finally, there are Horizon Europe projects, MaxPI and Pioneers. They are working on green port master plans. And in these green port master plans, these tools should also be coming back and should also be reflected. And we are very happy that today and tomorrow several ports will be taking part in our panel discussions who are actually part of these two projects, so MaxPI and Pioneers. But these are also critical links, and we hope to see that these tools will be coming back in the master plans that will be produced by these projects. Then, finally, by the end of this conference, we also would like to hear from you. Of course, not only by the end of the conference, we'd like to hear from you also during this conference, but at the end of this conference, there's the opportunity for you to, in written, provide your feedback on a snapshot overview or a selection of measures that we made that could be included in such an action plan. And therefore, we have a QR code with 3 or 4 questions for you to answer. You can rate them from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We'll put them on the screen at the end of today's program and at the end of tomorrow's program. but ThinkPort Vienna has been so kind to also print a number of these QR codes, and you can also find them here in the building. One is over there, and I think there are a number more around. So you can also scan it in the coffee break and have your response. So again, to stress, we would really like to hear from you. So please provide your feedback today and tomorrow. Be vocal, challenge us, provide your opinion, but also towards the end by scanning the QR code and providing your opinion on the number of statements that we made. Then, without further ado, I'd like to start with the real interesting part of the final conference, which is the 4 sessions that we have. The first session is on the environmental impact calculator for ports, how the environmental impact can be measured. A lot of interesting things have happened here, and therefore I'd like to give the floor to you, Roy van den Berg from CE Delft, and he will talk you through the next hour until the coffee break for this session. Please, Roy.
Thank you, Jasper. Wow, what an audience. Great to be here. So my name is Roy van den Berg. I'm working at CE Delft. And 3 years back, we started with this project. And I'm very happy that I'm that I could be the lead of the first task within this project, which also gives me the opportunity to be the first to go in depth with you. And it's also really nice to be here in Vienna. Because I didn't expect that 3 years ago that we would be here, standing here at ThinkPort Vienna. I think the outcome of task 1 is a bit different than I imagined 3 years ago. I will tell you a little bit more about that later on. But very happy with the result we have, and very happy that we have a really distinguished speaker, Alan Lewis from the Smart Freight Center, to give us a first, introduction into greenhouse gas emission calculations. But we also have a very distinguished panel from 3 different ports. So Henrike Bauer from Vienna, yep. Thanks for hosting us. Anne-Sophie Carras from Duisport. Thank you for being here. And also Patricia Polman from Deltaport from Wesel. Also very happy that you're here. So after the presentation of Alan, I will give a brief introduction into the environmental impact calculator, which has already been mentioned a few times before. And then we will go into a discussion with the inland ports to see what they think of the environmental impact calculator and how we can further develop that. So for now, I would like to ask Alan to come to the stage and take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roy. It's a pleasure to be back here. We had a meeting of the Multi-Reload project here around 2 years ago, which showed it was a great place to come and to have a meeting. So it's lovely to be back and to see so many of you here today. So my role is to give an introduction to the greenhouse gas calculation as it applies to ports and terminals, which is really a context for the tool that has been then developed within the project. And what I wanted to start by doing is to distinguish a little bit between 2 cases that can cause some confusion as some background. And the first relates to the calculation of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the transport of a consignment from its point of production through a multimodal transport chain to the point of its end use. And the calculation of greenhouse gas emissions along such a transport chain has actually been the focus of a lot of my work over the past 10 years or so. And in the European context, that would relate to the Counter Emissions EU regulation, which has recently got through its trilogue discussions and therefore is one step closer to reality. And within that, we have the role of hubs, as we would call it in our standardized work. But really, that is the terminals that are responsible for handling the goods and making the link from one transport mode to the next. And that is very much focused on some of the actions, obviously, within a port. But that is to be distinguished from the second side of things, which is the production of a greenhouse gas inventory for the total activities of an organisation. And that could be any organisation, whether it's a business producing widgets to a port or indeed a terminal. And the rules that generally focus on the production of a greenhouse gas inventory are generally focused around the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is something I will come back to later on. The former is largely follows the ISO standard, ISO 14083, which has a very tight boundary, but the data collection and the calculations for the individual elements of a transport chain can obviously also feed into a greenhouse gas inventory, but the inventory goes much, much further. So if you think about that then in a matrix context, the transport chain calculation and reporting very much relates to the terminal and would only necessarily relate to the Port Authority if there is a relationship between the terminals that they're and the port. So going back to what was said earlier about the Port of Vienna, you have the difference in responsibility from Wienkont as the subsidiary that is responsible for handling the containers versus the Port Authority as a whole. And then obviously the greenhouse gas inventory would be compiled from the terminal operator in its boundary for the port in its much, much wider boundary. And that is something that I really want to focus on in the rest of my discussion this afternoon. Because that port, as you all know, is very dependent on many other organisations within its area. And that comes with opportunities, but it also comes with challenges when it comes to calculating the overall impact and the ability to quantify it. And no, there are other technicalities about the boundaries for the greenhouse gas calculation. They're less important, I think, in this context. I think one of the reasons I want to emphasize this more than anything is for people who are not specialists, probably to the people not in this room, this distinction between the port and the terminal is probably not something that the general person would understand. They think that the role of the port is to move the goods as much as anything. But that comes back to the way that maybe some of the greenhouse gas calculation rules are written at a general level, because things like the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, they are written as a general starting point, and they don't necessarily on their own give enough direction to really allow an organisation to produce a greenhouse gas inventory on its own without additional guidance and supporting tools. And fundamentally, that is why we need this sort of project. So, moving past that little bit of context, why do we calculate and report greenhouse gas emissions? And largely, I think there are three elements to this. One is to meet legislative requirements, which obviously are becoming more common. And then the second two relate to each other. One would be to meet customer or investor requirements, which are more around the business need itself. And then once you get onto that road of wanting to reduce your emissions, you need to understand how you're doing, what you're going to do, what you're going to put into your plan. Examples of legislation, I'm sure you're all aware of some of these, but examples would include CSRD, count emissions, as I've already referred to, the stipulations of Renewable Energy Directive and ETS, etc. And when it comes to the voluntary action, as I say, you need to think about how it applies to your own organisation. And we've heard a little bit already about the colours of greening and the ambition that you set. And I think, again, that is very relevant to some of this, because you will, if you're setting out on a plan to reduce your emissions, you'll need a strategy, you'll need to define the measures that you're going to take, and then you'll need to understand actually what the impact of those is. Are you achieving what you anticipated? Do you need to revise your strategy every so often? And for all of that, you need to understand what it is that you want to calculate. You need to do that calculation, report it, and then take it through a continuous improvement loop. And in relation to that, within our work within Multi-Reload, we did a user survey quite early in the project to understand actually what it is that the terminals and the ports within the sector were trying to do with their work. And they were really focused on their total carbon footprint, so the inventory side. And they were doing it largely for their own purposes at that time. Maybe anticipating or anticipating the legislation, or maybe actually thinking about why it would help them in terms of their efficiency, reducing their environmental impact. And I actually found that quite refreshing, that they were doing it for their own purpose and not for the legislative side of things. And we found that they were trying to follow the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And I think in some cases not necessarily fully understanding what that meant. So they also told us very clearly there was a requirement for guidance and calculation tools. And the reasoning behind that goes back to what I said before. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol is in itself not really designed to the level of detail that would truly give you the tools to ensure that you get an in-depth, repeatable and comparable calculation. And that fundamentally is at the heart of the work. So thinking a little bit more about what the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is set up to do, it allows an organisation to think about the emissions split into what it calls 3 scopes. The first scope is the direct emissions that occur as a result of the activities that you as an organisation carry out, and the emissions that occur directly from the equipment that you operate. And that is largely focused around fossil fuel emissions that occur at the point of use. Then there is something called Scope 2, which are indirect emissions. And this is a hybrid where the activities are occurring within your own operations, but largely from electrified equipment. The emissions are occurring somewhere else in the energy supply chain, probably off-site unless you're generating your own electricity. And then the third scope is the indirect emissions, which result from other organisations' operations which fall within your value chain for the operating or the reporting organisation. And when we talk about value chain in the context of the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, we're talking about the organisations that you're generally doing business with. So you're buying in stationery from someone. There are emissions associated with the production of that stationery. Same for capital equipment, same for if you're subcontracting transport operations. And this also includes not just the products, but the services that are happening as well. And typically for an organisation, this full value chain approach covers a large set of emissions, much greater than your own direct emissions. And there is a large structured set of categories within Scope 3, some of which will have more relevance to particular types of organisation as they come together. And the logic about it is around the role that contracting and that the business environment has and that you as a customer have in interacting with your suppliers and how much influence you have. If you're buying a computer, you may not be able to influence Dell too much on the emissions of its computer. But at the same time, if you're able to do a reliable comparison between Dell and HP and Lenovo, you have some influence to decide, based on the information presented, which computer you might want to buy if you're focused on reducing emissions. And so you have this range of scopes and categories going through the direct, indirect, and then the full scope 3, as I've already talked about. And so the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, it very much focuses on the contractual links that you have as an organisation have. But that may not necessarily match what the port thinks it wants to know. And that's why I go back to what I mentioned a little bit about. In our survey, a lot of the ports say we're following the Greenhouse Gas Protocol because that's kind of set up for organisational reporting. But actually what we got to a little bit was, well, what exactly is being asked of ports? When someone asks for a report, what is it that they think they're asking for, particularly if a port has a strong link or is owned by a municipal authority? Because a lot of the time a port is thought of as what happens within a certain physical boundary. And if someone is asking that question and thinks that they're going to get a report back, they probably think that they're going to get a report of everything that is happening in this area, including the things that happen as a result of the Port Authority's buildings and its activities, the terminals, any warehouses that are located within the port area, other businesses that just find it convenient because there's a nice facility there, and all the transport operations that happen within that area. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to ask for. But if a port is following the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, that is not what they would produce, because they would produce instead something which follows their own activities. It would follow the business transport that their employees do if they're going out on business trips, which could be including train transport, going on, out to the other end of the country. But it may not necessarily include things like the ships that are occurring, maybe passing through the area, or some of the transport coming in and out to warehouses or other businesses, or even the commuting emissions that are occurring from other businesses that are located within the port. So I think the point is that you need to understand what you're being asked in order to actually put into context also the nature of the report. And in our work within Multi-Reload, we've just tried to highlight these differences in some guidance that we've been producing. And the third element is maybe if we're thinking about a very ambitious port, so one of the darker green ones, if we're thinking about distinctions of greening, probably what makes most sense is to try to pull together a comprehensive boundary, which cover both the geographic area and everything included within the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. Which sounds great for me to say that, because strategically that gives you the biggest boundary for producing a comprehensive emission reduction strategy. But of course, then it provides the biggest headache for the organisations that have to do it, because they need more data, they need to interact with a much wider range of organisations, some of whom maybe don't necessarily want to share their data. And so ultimately, I would say there's a need to choose, understand what you're trying to do or what you're being asked to do by your partners, and think about which of these boundaries you're going to follow. So hopefully that provides a little bit of context to some of the discussions. Maybe Roy will be able to talk a little bit about which of these boundaries the tool is following, and then our other speakers will also talk a little bit about the difficulties of the different data sets that are required to do some of this thing. So options are there. and I'm going to sit down and now listen to what they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, for this nice introduction. There might be some parts which were a bit technical, so just before we continue, are there any questions for Alan to clarify anything what he has been telling so far? No questions? Okay, perfect.
Hopefully it's clear. Everybody.
Okay, well then I will continue and give you a bit of insight in the port environmental impact calculator. Maybe good to mention is that we, and that's actually already what the title of the tool says, it's not only about greenhouse gas emissions. So we look to the total environmental impact. And I will show you later on, but it's good to mention that we have a bit broader perspective that we took within this project. So 3 years ago, for the first task where I'm responsible for, we were asked to do 3 things. So examine the environmental effect of inland ports. So we did that by doing an extensive literature study, many interviews, to determine what are the impacts or potential impacts of inland ports. And the other 2 things were mapping of the environmental performance of inland ports, and in addition to that, provide good practices to reduce their environmental impact. Well, the third, for the third task, we also did a lot of interviews, literature review, and defined over 40 good practices for inland ports to use in order to reduce their environmental impact in many different ways. And these good practices are all published on our project website. And with mapping of the environmental performance of inland ports, when we started 3 years ago, I had a totally different picture on what that would be. When I started almost 20 years ago, my career at the Port of Rotterdam, the Port Authority, I was involved in a project called Inland Links, and this was to promote intermodal transport and to give inland container terminals a sort of platform to promote their services. And we mapped actually the connections to these inland terminals from the Port of Rotterdam. So in my mind, I had a map with all the different ports active within Europe, all the 10T ports, with their environmental performance. Was actually what we saw during the project that this was a bit far-fetched. So we ended up with I think, very practical tool which can be used by inland ports in order to determine their own environmental performance and learn from that in order to improve. So I'm very happy that we're here with having a tool which can be used. And I think this is quite a unique tool, although I'm a bit biased, of course, because I'm presenting this. But given the tools available and the information available about calculating the environmental performance, this is quite unique because this is really specific for inland ports. And we took into account that every inland port is different. So we didn't try to develop a tool that is a sort of one-size-fits-all and you need to include everything. We really focused on the different activities that can take place within an inland port, and if that applies to you, you can fill that in, and then it is included in the calculation. But if you have a really small inland port, you can still use this tool as well. Well, it was already a bit introduced by Alan. The big question: who is responsible for filling in this tool, right? For indicating what the environmental performance of an inland port is. Is that the Port Authority, are that the individual companies active within the port. We really focused on the Port Authority, which can also share their input for the link for providing input into the tool with other companies. So if you want to also invite companies to provide their own input, that can also be done within this tool. But it can also be used only by individual companies operating within a port. So that's also perfectly possible. And then what to measure? That was a big question at the start of the project. What is an inland port? And actually, relating to what Alan already presented, is we used the geographical scope, right? To focus really on the activities applying or being used within the port boundaries, and the port itself can indicate what their boundaries are. So it's not that we say this is the minimum boundary or this is what you should include. The port itself can indicate what they include within their port boundary. And maybe also good to mention is that the driver for the environmental impact is what we see is the energy consumption of the activity. So we really use that as a starting point for calculating the environmental impact. Well, this is a screenshot of the website where you can find the environmental impact calculator. And after the introduction, you will find the different input fields. So there's a part which is general input. You provide general information, for example, about what your boundaries are. As a port authority, you can also provide some specific information about the activities of the port authority. Is it a landlord port, or do you also include the emissions or the energy use of operations within the port? And you also provide information about the total amount of employees active within the port, so we can calculate the energy used by the offices as well as the commuting to and from the port. And then we go a bit in more detail on the activities within the port. So we have a number of activities which we call the waterbound activities, so especially the terminal activities, of course, and the cargo vessels that arrive to or in the port to load or unload cargo. And then we also have a number of activities which are the non-waterbound activities, like warehousing or a refinery or other type of processing companies or storage companies located and active within the port. And you can pick the activities as you like. We have included a few which are obligatory to fill in, like, for example, the general information, the port authority, and the cargo vessels, because we expect that at least will be in place. And if it's not the port authority, you can of course also put things on zero. But this is a sort of starting point. And if you have calculated or provided the input of the different activities, you can calculate the results. But before we are there are two options. So if you don't have specific information about energy consumption, you can indicate that, and then we use the default values, because we understand that if you have many different activities within the port and you also want to fill in this tool as a port authority, you might not be able to retrieve that information. And in that case, you only need to insert the throughput of, for example, a terminal, and then based on the default values, we can calculate a first estimate of the environmental impact of those activities. So here we have an example where you see, for example, for a dry bulk terminal, we have the default value which is used, and based on the total amount transshipped. Probably this is maybe a bit difficult to read, but believe me, that's on the slide. And then there's also the option to include the actual fuel use, for example, of the terminal. And in this case, they included a certain amount of kilowatt hours of electricity use of the country grid mix, and also a certain amount of diesel used for this dry bulk terminal. And then you get another result, which is a little bit lower than the previous one, because in this case also you have a large share of electricity use, and then also a part which is the light blue, the diesel usage. So in this way, you can see what the impact is, and you can also, for example, use it to test what the effect is if you electrify, for example, key cranes. If you then submit all the information, you get these kind of graphs, which shows the total, in this case, global warming, so the total CO2 equivalent units produced by the different activities. So here you see, for example, that the black part is the dry terminal, the dry bulk terminal, and the light blue one or green one is the break bulk terminal. So you see a big difference between the activities taking place within the port. And you can also zoom in on specific activities. So, for example, here we have an overview of the different activities that create CO2 emissions by the Port Authority. For here, in this case, this is a large extent electricity usage, but also commuting by car creates a big part of the CO2 emissions. So there are different perspectives you can have with the idea to identify the hotspots of your environmental impact on which you can focus on in order to reduce them if you like. And here's a final overview of all the different environmental impacts. So here you below you see the different environmental impacts and the shares on those things of the different activities. So, for example, terrestrial acidification, that's to a large extent the result of the break bulk terminal. But for container terminals, we see that they have a big share in the water consumption. So in this way, you can see what the impacts are and where you need to focus on if you want to reduce. So this was in brief an introduction of the environmental impact calculator, which you can find on our website. So if you want to use it, just go on the Green Inland Ports website and you can really use it. So this is actually now we're at the second stage of this session, and I want to invite the panelists to come forward and take a seat, so we can have a brief discussion on maybe you. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Hello.
If it works, yeah, it works. Great.
Hello. Test. Hello. Yes, hello.
Yeah. Okay. So. Maybe before we start, I already briefly introduced you, but maybe you can also briefly introduce yourself a little bit more. Ellen, you already did, of course, but Henrike, please.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, and thanks so much for being here and for coming to Vienna and to the ThinkPort Vienna. Very happy to have you here. Yeah, Henrike Bauer from Business Development Department, Deputy of Port of Vienna, and proud part of ThinkPort Vienna also. So yeah. Happy to have you here, everybody. And looking forward to the party tonight. As Ms. Marcus said, we have to party, so please let's do that tonight.
So I continue, Anne-Sophie Karas, working on research and innovation at the Corporate Development Department of Duisburg, Port of Duisburg. And I'm also really happy to be here, and yeah, looking also forward to the party tonight.
Yes, also good afternoon from my side. I'm Patricia Pollmann. I work for the inland port Delta Port in Wesel, Germany. Yes, and we got the link through the Magpie project, actually, that was already mentioned before. To be part also here as a pilot port, and also very happy to be here.
Thank you. Patricia, to start with you, yeah, so we met a few years ago, and you became involved as a pilot port. You also tested the tool. Can you give some first experiences with the tool?
Yes, so for us it was the first external tool that we tested, and it was very interesting to have a starting point to monitor and to have a great overview of our emissions, and to just get started having all the information gathered in one point, because we didn't have that before. It was always hard to get all the information collected, and the tool was very, very intuitive. It was very nice to have all the clear questions all laid out in a very structured way, because that, as I mentioned before, was a bit hard before. So those were the experiences, very, very intuitive, also great structure.
Okay, thank you. Henrike, you extensively tested the tool. What were your experiences?
Well, thanks to Peter, my colleague, who signed us up with the EFIP. Yes, thank you for being one of the test ports. I was in the lucky position to test it from the very beginning. I think it started off as an Excel sheet, and then developed into this really nice dashboard, which is now easy to navigate and to use. Even though, I mean, I'm not the sustainability expert at the Port of Vienna, this is other colleagues of mine, but of course we work closely together. I noticed that you really do still need the support, and it was really, really essential to have people like you guys from CE Delft, and also thanks to Smart Freight Center, to help us to really understand what you have to fill in. So the tool is really easy and intuitive, as you said, Patricia, but still it's really, really important to, and I have to be honest, it wouldn't go without the support of you guys to really help us understand all the scopes and stuff and the boundaries. So I love it, really love the tool, and I'm so eager to keep working with you and develop it even further.
Thanks. That's good to hear. Anne-Sophie, Duisburg didn't extensively tested it, but I understood that you also had some experience with using it, with applying the tool. What are your first experiences?
Yes, when the tool was released, we were already further along in the data collection process. Of course, we tried it out as well. What we particularly like is the easy accessibility and the simple design. And it's a great way to get started, especially for the inland ports.
Okay, thanks. And you just mentioned that you were already a bit further with data collection. Can you explain that a bit more? What kind of data do you collect, and what stage were you already in?
Yes, so we started with an Excel sheet, and we based our approach on the REF tool from the Fraunhofer IML. And since we wanted to cover the entire consolidation group, which is about approximately 10 companies with over 50 locations all around Germany, this was no longer sufficient. We were also following the GHG protocol, and we worked with the CoZero tool, which has a focus on logistics overall. Together with them, we have further developed the tool to suit our needs as a corporate group. And the tool enables us to record the current status and it will also enable us to go through various scenarios and also for each individual company's location.
Okay, that sounds also quite large tool. Very interesting. Thanks. So we heard about some first experiences. Can you also explain a bit of the advantages you see, Patricia?
It is a great tool to have, as I also said, the transparency. So for us, it's also very important to engage with our stakeholders, and especially with the citizens in our port area. We have to get them on board to be able to bring our projects and ideas to life. If we don't have them on our side, we won't manage to go further with our ideas. And the tool helps us to be very transparent with our emissions, especially nowadays that the environmental impact is so important and everybody is focused on that and is giving emphasis on this. This tool helps us a lot to be transparent with our emissions, that they might not be as bad as people think, because the port usually has the image of being a bad actor. And this tool makes it a bit more transparent, that it's not always the case, and that the port is doing something to also monitor the impact and the emissions, and to come up with ideas how to improve and have a very clear picture of that.
Yeah, okay, clear. And Henrike, do you also see other advantages?
For example, we use an Excel dashboard at our holding where we collect the data at the port authority at the moment for the holding sake. But what I experienced with working with, again, I have always to mention also Smart Freight Center, because we did a really good collaboration all together. What I really like about this tool is that it really understands the inland port perspective. So this is a different, I think, to generic logistic tools, which usually miss those important details. So this is what makes for me the advantage to really, have next to the Bean Holding dashboard we have now still, and we will still continue to use for now. Of course, we still, us as a department, as a port itself, or as a ViNCon together with Benjamin, we can clearly see the difference, from the terminal's perspective. You can see the different terminals, which in our tools, in the logistic tool, we don't get to see it. So this is the clear advantage for me, that it has, like you said, the boundaries or the specialities of the ports. They are so different, and it includes everything. So I think this is really what makes the, well, how do you say, point of sale or something? Buy it.
Given that you're also involved in the multi-reload project and with your own activities within the Port of Vienna, there are probably also points for improvement of the tool. What do you have? What kind of suggestions do you have?
Well, the suggestion basically arrived through the talking together, to our exchange actually. It's not from my head, but I just gave my basic input, and then with your colleagues and you, we found that scope 3, which is always a very big challenge, is definitely something where we can improve, and maybe the tool can also be a bit further adjusted, so we can really use it as a reporting tool for us. So I think that should be the goal, that we continue this collaboration with help of the DG Move. Where are they? Yes, so that would be great. And now I'm lost. But
that's very clear. Very clear.
Perhaps I could pick up on that a little bit, because one of the learnings that we had comes back to the boundaries. And Roy, you said your focus was the geographic scope. We came at it in multi-reload thinking about greenhouse gas protocol scope, because that was what was said to us in the user survey. And we did spot, with Henrike's help, that some of the elements that would go into a greenhouse gas protocol scope were not there. And so we helped a little bit to sort of supplement, and therefore we have a supplementary or an annex or whatever, which I don't know if we've handed it over yet, but we're more than willing to help you move to at least offering the opportunity to a comprehensive scope, if that's what a company wants to do. so that there is as much flexibility there as possible. And again, it's just at the moment, it's just a simple Excel tool. It's by no means the full scope that you have. It's just 2 or 3 little additions. So.
That's very useful, definitely. Yeah, we started with this as we decided to go for a geographical scope because that's sort of pragmatic and a little bit easier to go with. But definitely, if we can have that, that would be nice. And Sophie, what kind of points for improvement do you see for us?
Well, as mentioned, Scope 3 is particularly extremely difficult to capture. Which means that many calculations rely on estimates. So yeah, it's a great way to get started. But yeah, Scope 3.4, for example, is very simplified, not so realistic to get emissions intensities from your hauliers for the calculation. So yeah, it would be interesting to consider recording the product carbon footprint or service carbon footprint for each handling. If we had the ability to measure the environmental impact of each individual handling operation, that would be a great opportunity, especially for our customers. Yet this is quite unrealistic. So calculations are based on estimations. Yeah.
Thank you. Patricia, what kind of challenges do you see with these kind of tools?
I think. Thank you. I think the biggest challenge that we always face is to gather all the data. So we, for example, are just a landlord port and we don't have our own operations. And we simply don't have access to the data of, the terminals when they operate, how many how high are the emissions that they produce, what do they consume. That is the biggest challenge for us because the terminals also don't usually hand out the data just like that. They are very concerned, especially in Germany, with the data protection and privacy, and if they are not forced to share anything, they usually prefer not to. And for us, of course, as the Port Authority, we can access our own data, but it's a challenge to bring all the data together in one spot and fill it in the tool then.
I see a lot of nodding here on this side as well. So that's actually also a question I want to pose to you. Is in what way can we organize it that the data will become available? Are there any ideas from the audience how to get data in order to fill these kind of tools? It's actually a difficult question because we also came across that, of course. But I was wondering if there are already any ideas or examples from other ports. A little bit. Yeah? Maybe just wait. Oh, there is coming.
Yeah, just an idea. We always have quite tensions between the port area and the community next, the cities. And perhaps it's a possibility to make this problem the problem of our clients, to make them sure or to make them clear, if you help us, you help yourself. Because with your data, we have the arguments to make this port secure, and so that's also your advantage. That would be my access to this.
Thanks, yeah, interesting perspective, thank you. Yeah.
Maybe I add something. We always talk about data, and people are the companies are probably too scared to share what I experience now within ourselves, in our own company. It's not so much you don't want to share it, but it's this insecurity. I wasn't an expert when I started working with you on this topic, and I really had to dig myself into it. I'm still not far away from an expert. But what I realized is the insecurity of, am I doing this right, what I'm putting in there? The data I want and I need to collect, this is like always at the very end, even though I was sure and I was talking to Gabi and to you guys, and I wasn't sure, did I do it right? Is it really reflecting, did I like everything that I need to share? And I think that is the same problem with our tenants and everyone, that they have this insecurity. Am I providing the right data for them? Is it really the same? We all collect, if we collect them, and we all collect them differently. And this makes it, I think, harder. I don't think it's so much, which for me, I realize now, it's not so much the being afraid of sharing data, but being afraid of this insecurity of doing it right. That's what my personal experience was, and I think maybe people can relate to that.
And I think standardization helps in that, and setting out exactly what the indicators and the level of data is, because if you go to someone and say, can I have your data, they immediately think you want every single piece of information that they have. And you can understand why they're not going to give that to you. But also, a lot of that is not really that much use to you, because you'll be overwhelmed by it by the time you've then got that level of information from so many different companies. What you need to have is a clear request for, we need this piece of information, probably aggregated from the activities that you have that feeds into us for this particular purpose. So it's as much a communication exercise, and as you're saying, putting their mind at rest as to why. And it takes a while to build that level of trust. We've been doing that work, obviously not so much in the port community, but on the sharing of information in the supply chain. So going back to the transport chain. And over the years, people become more understanding about why does this transport, why is my customer asking me for my information about my emissions?